Welcome to the Data Edit, the podcast for data-forward thinkers. Hosted by Agile's Ben Howarth, Head of AI, and Olly Seger, Account Director, we explore the challenges, innovations and trends shaping the data landscape. From governance and ESG to AI ethics, cloud migration and analytics, discover how data is driving real business value.
So hi there and welcome back to episode 2 in our series of podcasts. In the last one we talked pretty much, it would be remiss of us not to have discussed AI, so we did that. Obviously that leads to various conversations. We talked last time about organizations really trying to think about using AI to generate positive outcomes and address business challenges rather than using AI for the sake of using AI. Interested, we had a couple of comments on that, which we'll come to, and we made reply via LinkedIn. But what we wanted to talk about today was obviously AI is only of value based on the data that feeds it and the requests that go through to the data itself, and the impact that the massive demand and increase of data requirements is having on the actual data centers that are storing the data and the compute power required to analyze the data and provide the responses via the various AI type tooling. So where do you want to start, Ben? Have you got any interesting stats or figures around this kind of topic?
Yeah, so hi and welcome back to everybody. So I think for me, I think we've almost got two topics here and probably two separate podcasts. So there is that whole shell of what the actual data center looks like, how that works, how that operates, and then B, what we're putting in there, why we're putting it in there in the first place. So let's tackle the first one. So there is and I think we need to recognize it, to be perfectly honest. I think there is a new sector or a new industry which is now starting to pop up. We are seeing it in the UK. So the UK is growing in its AI and data center kind of usage. And obviously, as we talked about previously, more AI means more data centers, more requirements, more power consumption, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And the UK is responding. We are building data centers now in the UK. There is a demand at the moment of about 40 to 50,000 employed people looking after these data centers. And approximately, it takes about 40,000 people to build one. Now, that to me seems absolutely crazy. But actually, when you go back into the kind of the base of it, it's from the guy, I guess, who does the initial survey of land all the way through to those guys that, put all that wiring in, all the safety systems and everything else. I mean, that's how many people actually get touched in that overall process. It's a massive stat. So are we actually now starting to build a new ecosystem, a new sector within AI, well, not within AI, but within UK business around AI, around the use of data. And specifically, I guess, looking at the UK, considering that's where I'm from and you are too, it's expected to be a 10% year-on-year growth. So at the moment, we're spending something like 4 billion. By 2035, it's expected to be 44 billion. That to me is, that's nuts.
Yeah, that's a significant increase, isn't it?
And I guess the market, yeah.
I guess whilst absolutely that creates potentially a new silo within the construction industry, I guess, which is what you're saying, kind of related to, data center build and ethical build. The challenge, I guess, which is being addressed, I know from various of the sort of hyperscalers in terms of their data center build program, the environmental and sustainability piece around their builds. But it's not just that, is it? It's the actual impact upon, in the UK specifically here, our own power for you, me, everyone, are the individuals that reside in this country. How is the increased demand for the power consumption on those data centers that we're building, 10% year on year, affecting the availability of some of that power for you and me, and us being able to access sustainable power, electricity, carbon neutral electricity, because the hyperscalers are demanding that to make their own operations sustainable, if you or net zero, carbon zero, whatever. So I guess there's various kind of things that could impact this, aren't there? And have we got enough power? Are we getting it from sustainable sources? And if we are, does that mean that Joe Bloggs is unable to access that green energy for our own benefit?
Yeah, and I guess from my point of view, and not trying to get too political at all there, but what actually gets termed as green energy?
Yeah.
Just because nuclear today means we don't have to dig a hole in the ground and extract coal. Actually, we're still digging holes in other parts of the country to store the spent fuel because we have no other way of getting rid of it. So, we're now trying to, I guess there's an ongoing conversation that needs to happen. Are we actually just borrowing? Are we using today and borrowing from the future? Are we making it somebody else's problem by calling it renewable energy? There's all sorts of stats, and whether you want to believe them or not, around how long it takes for solar panels to degrade, how useful they actually live for, how long can you actually get a valid power supply from them. And as I understand it currently today, happy to be challenged on this, but welcome comments as well from anybody listening to the podcast. How do we dispose of them? Because my understanding is at the moment, there isn't a way to actually, take them apart, reuse them, recycle any parts from them. The actual chemical aspects, once they're used and they are potentially toxic. So I don't want to make it political by any means of the imagination, but I think there is this concern about, from society, we're all told electric cars are the way forwards.
I knew you were going to touch on that. We had a conversation about this a while back, didn't we? Yeah.
We're all
it's all relevant. It's all relevant, right? Because the consumer world is replicated either before or after the business world, and we should absolutely be making decisions that we would take sensibly in our own personal lives, and they should be translated into decisions that are made in the business world when it comes to ethically building sustainable futures for not just my kids, but their kids, etc. And are we too late, or are we just
in time?
Do we just need to think about it? Maybe this podcast is the catalyst for various folks to kind of sit up and have a think about this, because not that we're going to change the world by any stretch, but these are things that we should all be thinking about, right?
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to, I can't have an electric car in my area at the moment because, alluding to your earlier point, the national grid isn't capable of delivering enough power into my area, me to be able to have an electric charge point at home. Now, we, as you rightly said, we've touched on this a few times. There are people who just go and put them in, and come what may, there have been unfortunate incidents and fires, etc., etc. I know people in my area who just dangle a cord out of their upstairs window. And it's just it's a 240 volt power cord that just goes out, and they can't charge their car if it's raining. All those kind of things. So, like, people are obviously trying to find ways around it. We're told that we have to go down that. So, I'm interested to know what, where, when. Tell me more about your mini nuclear reactors, because I think this is potentially a way forwards. But I do wonder if we're still borrowing a little bit from the future.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It was an article I read recently about Rolls-Royce basically wanting to position themselves as the global leader of nuclear energy for good, I guess. There are various use cases where they call these SMR, small modular reactors, available for one of the things they actually state specifically is for data centers. Now, that feels like it could be an answer. There's no right answer or wrong answer or whatever. But from the UK perspective, with a UK company, would we not be wise to support that? You know, the likes of the hyperscalers in other parts of the world, when they're building data centers, are addressing and trying, where they've got, you know, North America, etc., vast amounts of space and lands, and you know, they can use different types of energy. We don't have that in the UK, right? So maybe this is a problem that could solve our UK and some of Northern Europe problems. Would it be translatable to the US? I'm not sure, but it feels like it's a good opportunity. A company like Rolls-Royce would not be investing millions in this technology if they didn't think it had legs. And to call out data centers, they've obviously recognized that, you know, this was a problem brewing a few years back, or however many years back they decided to start working on this, or translating the use of the nuclear reactors that they've been using for years into more of a commercial business model. Yeah, it might be an answer. Again, let's hear what people's thoughts are.
Absolutely. I think it's I think there's an interesting aspect in there as well about it kind of shows where money's been spent in the past. You know, as a country, all countries promote defence, and that's obviously where Rolls-Royce have got this from. We all know that boats and ships and submarines are all running on nuclear reactors these days. So they're out there. They're already in use. They're already proved that they're safe. I haven't heard of a UK touch a lot of wood. I don't want to see a radio footage now today, thanks. But you don't hear about any incidents or accidents with them. So they're obviously safe. They've obviously developed them. They've been working on them for a number of years. So they must be a commoditized product.
Yeah.
I think there's still some other aspects that are interesting and potentially need to be thought through about. We can solve potentially the electrical issue using those SMRs, but can we solve the distribution of heat? So I appreciate closed loop systems and bits and pieces you've talked me through before that you've seen and read about, but that still has to be dissipated into the atmosphere somewhere. So, you know, is Norfolk, where I live, is that going to become the new Costa del Sol with record temperatures every year of 35 degrees on the beach? And in which case I need to make an investment.
Or into new flip-flops.
The beach hut.
Yeah. No, I think, and that's a really interesting thing as well, isn't it? The location of these things, you know, being near water sources, for example, and sustainable water supplies for cooling and that sort of stuff. You know, there's logic that needs to be applied as well, right? Yeah, look, this is we talked at the beginning, this is a part, you know, one of two parts. We don't have the answers. You know, this is a chit chat to see what other people think. You know, I'd love to get some insight into, you know, some slightly more informed brains perhaps as to, you know, what is being done and what the answers might or might not be. But it is a sure via consideration that feeding in from the AI needs data needs to be housed somewhere, and it needs to be computed, if that's such a word. Then, you know, the increased demand follows all the way through, and, you know, the energy requirement is super important. Yeah, like I say, interested to hear anyone's thoughts on this. I think we'd probably keep this as a pretty short and snappy podcast today, because we want to move into the second part of this kind of potential data center issue around the actual amount of data that we're storing in these data centers that may, or as you might find out in the next one, may not be required. So unless you've got any other comments, Ben, I'm happy to wrap this one. I say short and sweet, because it's really kind of just what's people's opinions and thoughts. And we touch on this.
I guess the one big one, and again, it's kind of like I don't have an answer to it. It's just, you know, it goes all the way back to that very first question. Are we trying to plan for something that may never happen? I would love, you know, to hear other people's kind of views, the societal impact of AI on the world. Are we trying to just, it's a big thing right now, yeah? We said it in the first podcast. But are we actually trying to run before we can walk? And are we trying to set ourselves up for a demand just because people are going, let's have some AI, rather than, maybe in a couple of years, once that initial wave of anticipation has gone, will the demand for all of this, reduce a little bit, or is it here to stay? I'm sure it's
Yeah.
here to stay, but is it here to stay in this volume? I had a quick couple of looks at a couple of stats, and on average, sci-fi films are about 30 to 50 years ahead of where we are societally.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
I know where you're going with this. Yeah. Interesting.
It is interesting. Are we being driven a little bit by our past as well, from
Yeah.
the wants and the promises from sci-fi era of, this computer and technology and AI and thought-provoking stuff will actually just allow us to do all these other things. Is that misfortune forwards?
Go on then, give us some examples.
Oh no, I don't want to scare people. Obviously, Terminator's going to come through.
Yeah. What was her name? Sarah Connor. Is it Sarah Connor?
Yeah. It's interesting. So, okay, a couple of examples. Just because I think probably the first film where I really saw some sort of types of AI, 2001: Space Odyssey. Yeah.
Showing our age. Yeah.
Within 50 years, HAL became Siri, and now most people have a version of it on your mobile phone.
Yeah. Or even watch. Yeah.
I actually look like someone. I had someone phone me yesterday. My phone was inside. I did answer it on my watch.
I've done it a few times. Yeah.
I was that Star Trek.
Like this. Yeah. Nanu.
War Games, which was one of my favorite films when I was growing up. 83 that was released.
Yeah.
Teaching a computer how to play chess and the benefits and stuff. The military using AI for the past, or machine learning parts of AI for the past 10, 15 years now. Simulations. So that one's come true. Terminator, not fully seen yet, but we do have AI drones. We do have drones that can actually operate as swarming effects in real life, unfortunately, at the moment. I've got one here around Jurassic Park, but I'm not really 100% sure I want to go down the world of AI-assisted genetics. That to me is a step too far. Interesting.
But you know what? Just back on that drone thing. I was watching. Oh gosh, it was a couple of years ago, and I remember watching the New Year's Eve celebrations thing on TV. You know, where they do all around the world at the times, and got to London, and I was thinking, how on earth are they? And I'm a bit simple sometimes. So I was thinking, how on earth are they doing some of these displays where pictures are up in the sky, etc., etc. And then not long ago, I watched a documentary on TV about how they've set these massive displays, which are all drones, you know, talking to each other, distance apart, etc., etc. Fascinating, and yeah, my word, it's clever stuff. And is that, I guess, back on topic, is that a sustainable and ethical use of data and AI? Just so we can see some fantastic. What's wrong with a good old fashioned firework? You know, it's clever stuff, but when will it stop? Yeah.
I think there's lots of. I think there's some real value adds, potential uses for all of this. So, they train doctors do AI tools to do really complicated and delicate surgeries, and they can have multiple goes at it. And the worst that happens is they press reset. And that to me is quite a comforting thought.
Agreed.
The knife to know that, and they can scan you. They can actually rebuild your body in a virtual world, etc., etc. So maybe some of these AI films, these sci-fi films, have a benefit. They are being realised for good. I think to some of them are. Sci-fi films always come with a bit of terror about them, don't they, as well? So
yeah. And the fact they've been made, and we're now starting to see some of these things come to life, makes you revert back to the negative effects of some of those films. But you're absolutely right. You know, this is again, back to a similar topic of using data and AI for good and for valuable reasons, the right reasons, and housing all the data in the compute in the right way as well.
Yep.
Let's call it, and let's move on to the next podcast, where we're going to talk about the actual data itself and some interesting statistics as to do we actually need what we've got and what we're paying for. But anyway, thanks for checking out the podcast for those that have jumped on, and look forward to catching up with you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks all. Take care.
Thanks for listening to The Data Edit. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow the show and share it with your network. You'll find more resources, insights, and upcoming episodes at agile.co.uk.